All right, so I'm going to introduce you to Rich Sheffrin, and then Rich is going to take over and drive the train tonight. I'm just going to just share with you a little bit of a personal experience and why I think what you're about to hear from Rich is so important. There are basically 4 levels of information in the world, okay? And it's worth writing these 4 down. The first level of information is emotion. About 90% of our culture in the United States, at least right now, operates purely off of nothing more than emotion. No data, no knowledge, no wisdom, just pure reaction to almost anything. The second level of information, getting better, is actually data. This is actual real numbers that actually mean something. The third layer of information, which is better than data, is knowledge. And knowledge is saying, what should I do with this data and how should I implement it in my business? And then the fourth layer, which is really the layer that you want to get to in your business, but more importantly, it's the layer of the people that you want to get advice from, is wisdom. Okay, so data can tell you how much, what an opt-in page converted at. Knowledge could tell you, here's how you move some things around on your opt-in page so that you'll get a better conversion. Wisdom is to look at one company and go, you should have an opt-in page like this, and look at another company and say, you don't need an opt-in page at all. Wisdom is being able to look at separate businesses and be able to see the differences between the businesses and give specific advice for specific businesses, because the fact is, even though your business isn't different, when it comes to the big picture things, your business is different in the way you apply the principles. And Rich Sheffrin, in my opinion, is literally one of only a handful of people that I can count on less than one hand of fingers that operates almost exclusively at the level of wisdom. And Rich has been doing this for years. He's one of, I would say, one of the most important people and one of the most well-known people inside of information marketing. Rich has coached some of the most influential people inside of information marketing. So if you've ever heard of a guy named Ryan Dice, Rich has coached Ryan. If you've ever heard of a guy named Perry Marshall, who's the AdWords guy, Rich has coached Perry. If you've ever heard of a guy named Mike Filsame, Genesis Marketing, or Marketing Genesis, Rich has coached Mike Filsame, and a host of more like that, okay? So Rich really kind of became known when he wrote his Internet Marketing Manifesto, which is a 60-page document, which really transformed and revolutionized the info marketing industry. It generated, by the way, about 2 million free downloads, which is like successful all by itself. But the information was amazing. Made Rich over $30 million. And also, this is actually really important, totally transformed the way we do business. So if you're familiar with the idea of like the free model, where people come to your website and then they opt in for something for free, that wasn't always around. That was Rich's basically invention, okay? So you're about to hear from a guy who I consider a big legend in the game. Rich has been paid up to $25,000 to share his internet marketing secrets with these companies. You might have heard some of these, Yahoo, Microsoft, and Google. So you're about to hear from a person that I consider a master in this game. So please welcome, give a warm GKIC welcome to the stage to Mr. Rich Sheffrin. Come on, man.
All right, how are we doing tonight? We doing good? Okay. All right, so a new way to market, right? How to create demand instead of chasing it. And this has been a real focus of mine for the last couple of years. And I'm hoping to really open your eyes to how most people online and in information marketing both approach things in a way that is not ideal in this day and age. And so I'm going to explain why. Also, I wanted to ask you, are you ready for the best night of your life? Yeah. Now, I want to give you the best night of your life. And I think that if I could alter your financial destiny, right, then that would make for a pretty good night, right? So that's what I'm going to commit to you, that I'm going to alter your financial destiny. But in order for that to happen, you got to play with me. I don't spend most of my time speaking. This isn't my wheelhouse. So I need your engagement. So if I ask a question, please participate. You know, it just makes it easier and makes things go by faster and you remember more if we're having a conversation as opposed to me just giving a lecture. I can drag you to it, right? But I can't make you really take ownership of it. And for what I want to teach you tonight, I need you to participate. And you'll understand why in a few minutes, right? So I want to not only lead you to water, but I want you to drink it. And so that's my commitment to you. I hope that's your commitment to me. If it is your commitment to me, can you just say, yeah? Very cool. Okay. So why are we here? It's kind of a metaphysical question, but we're not going to go down that road, okay? So let me tell you why I'm here first, and then we're going to look at why you're here. I believe that it's easier to do everything online as it relates to marketing today than it was a year ago, than it was 2 years ago, than it was 3 years ago, et cetera. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you why. However, the only thing that is not easier today than it was last year or the year before is actually succeeding. And I don't mean like, make a little bit of money, but actually build something sustainable, something highly profitable that you would be proud of that would make a real difference. So I want to change that, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to change that so I can show you the easy approach to actually growing a very successful business, right? In fact, it is so easy, a caveman can do it. All right. I'm going to go through about 10 slides here. This is not to take notes on, right? I just want to alert you to some of the tools that are out there to allow you to do so many things that couldn't be done before and will assist you in the way you market, right? So if you want to research prospects, you want to know what type of content gets them excited, you can go to, that's the next one, sorry. If you want to do research with your prospects, right? What are the prospects that you're going after, what are they doing? What sites do they go to? How long do they spend there? What sites do they go to before that? What sites do they go to after that? SimilarWeb can tell you that. If you want to know what the percentage are Republicans versus Democrats, Quantcast can tell you. And it might not be able to tell you on your site, but if you go to the high traffic sites in your niche, it would give you the same answer, okay? If you wanted to figure out what type of content would my prospects be really excited about, content that I could put on my blog or on Facebook or wherever else, right? What topics in my niche tend to get passed along the most, tend to get liked the most, tend to get favorited the most? BuzzSumo and Uprise.io will tell you that information, and they'll tell it to you for free. It's easier and cheaper than ever before to get a lead or an opt-in, right? There's YouTube advertising, which people are crushing it on. There's Facebook advertising, which people are crushing it on. Before Facebook existed, right, the only people that could really advertise well as it related to pay-per-click were people who had their prospects out looking for exactly what it was they were offering, which wasn't very many. So whereas in Facebook, we can target a group of people with similar interests, likes, et cetera, they don't have to be actively pursuing something for us to talk to them. So Facebook ads changed the game, and so same with YouTube advertising, right? If that wasn't enough, you also have retargeting, remarketing, whether it's Google, Facebook, or anyone else. And if you can't create, you don't have a designer, you don't have a webmaster, you don't need one, you can use a company like Lead Pages to create your landing pages. It's easier to build a funnel than ever before and have it make you money. There was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that one of my competitive advantages was that I could create a funnel like that by just having 2 or 3 people on my team attack it. Now everybody can do that with ClickFunnels, right? You can have a funnel up and running online with a bunch of clicks. So there's all these courses, there's funnel hacking, about how to analyze other funnels to see which pieces are working the best. There are no secrets online. And so every answer to every question that, if you got the answer, would improve your marketing, it's there for the taking. It's easier than ever to make that initial sale and get that initial sale to be profitable in your attempt to acquire customers, because there are, and look, this is such a small fraction. All these companies, right, Tripwire, I put that logo in not because of a company, but because most people are familiar with what a Tripwire is. Yes or no? Okay, cool. So, Tripwire, low-price product, right? The idea being less marketing is needed, but then you've gotten the person into a buying kind of momentum, and then you can sell upsells behind it. The rest of those companies are all companies that will make your upsell process better, right? Smart upsells, in-cart upsells, frequently bought together, etc. It's easier to convert high-priced back-end sales than ever before with event-driven marketing, evergreen business systems, stealth seminar, product launch formula, etc. Turning the actual release of the back-end product, a more expensive product that really builds customer value. Turning it into an event, like something to be excited about, something where there's anticipation, something, more than just, hey, we got another product we want you to buy. Okay. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. There we go. All right. It's easier than ever to have your own membership, an e-learning platform. There was a time, not long ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, that if you wanted to have a membership site, it would cost you 6 figures plus, because you had to have it made. Maybe 12 years ago. But now, Kajabi, Customer Hub by Infusionsoft, Amember Pro, there's literally thousands of companies. WordPress plugins that create membership sites. All these things have already been made for you. All right. It's easier to create a community, to build a community, have people interact with each other by starting a Facebook group. We have Facebook groups for some of our programs, and they get a lot of interaction because people are on Facebook all the time. So, it's a great way to build a community of people that all buy your product or all are in some continuity program or what have you. Because that's the pain of disconnect. They have to leave if they decide not to stay. Same with fan pages. You see that kind of engagement. And believe it or not, I could keep going and going and going, and this is just one of many sites online that are just a web page that just has tool after tool after tool, all designed to make everything easier than you've ever done, right? Whether it's building a landing page, building a funnel, right? Having chat, live chat, when people are on the site, turning your blog post into highly SEO'd content, social media management, being able to be alerted anytime anyone mentions your name on any of the platforms. So when you look at it like that, it's kind of perplexing that why would it be that with all these leaps, why aren't we seeing more and more entrepreneurs succeed? Well, okay, so a couple minutes ago I asked you to really engage with me, to do what it is I ask you to do, because I'm not just doing it to have you do it, it's actually part of what I want to teach you, okay? So I want to talk about you for a second. And I want you to think about and write down just one sentence on a page that you're never going to show it to anyone, but you're going to do a couple of sentences on that. Why are you here? There's a lot of places you could be now. Most of them would cost you less, they'd be nicer weather, you'd probably be more comfortable. So you came here. Why? You didn't come here for no reason. So what was that reason? You will be at a loss if you don't do this, because you will not understand stuff that comes later. Because I'm going to refer to it when I say, remember when you did this. All right. So some examples could be, I want to take my offline business online. I want to start an info publishing business. I came here to network, to meet people who can help me grow my business, or to really grow my business and make more money, or 100 other reasons, right? what I want you to recognize, this is actually, we're starting to talk about some of the elements that you need to understand if you want to create demand, right? So if you look at these, the first thing I want you to think about, and then I want you to look at what you wrote, is that each of them are at their core a conflict that you have. It might not be expressed that way currently, okay? But there's some goal that you have that you've not attained it. There's some problem that you have that you haven't resolved. It has to be one of those two. Now, you might have said it very differently, might not have said it as a conflict, but it is a conflict. What all of these reasons have in common is they relate around money, right? I get my business online so I can make more money, right? Start an info publishing business so I can make more money. To meet more people to grow my business so I can make more money. To really grow my business and make more money. And that shouldn't really be shocking. This is a seminar on marketing and growing your business, so it makes sense that they would be money-related reasons. Servicing more people, you make more money. Make a bigger difference in the world. Then, the conflict is that you're not now. So, why? This is the next question I want you to consider, okay? Why? Now, before you answer it, let me explain what I mean by why. I want you to look at your answer that you originally gave, see if you can kind of understand what I'm saying, that it's really a conflict, right? And everything that we buy at the end of the day is to solve a conflict. If it's not a problem we're resolving or a goal we're trying to attain, what are we spending money on? So, when I say why, what I'm asking for is when you look at what you wrote and you see that and you ask yourself the question, why is that important to me? Why is that important to me? So I want you to write 3 reasons why what you wrote is important to you. And I want to give you an example so you kind of understand what I'm saying, and then we can give you a second here. So remember, someone gave I made it up, but in my mind, someone gave the answer to take my business online, right? Okay, so why is that important to you? Well, one answer could be my offline business is shrinking, even though I'm working more than ever. All the new customers are online, so I need to get online ASAP. That would make sense, right? If you felt that, if you thought that, then coming here to learn how to get your business online would make sense. Or it could be this reason. If I don't change things, I'm going to go out of business. And I can't imagine I could ever be successful starting another business because this is all I know. Or I'm so embarrassed because now I'm saying no to my kids and my spouse more than ever before. We simply can't afford much. I'm so scared of failing and my family suffering the consequences. Now, your reasons could be totally different, right? But behind every conflict, right, there are reasons that this conflict exists. So take a second now, or 2, and really think about what are the reasons why what you wrote as your reason is important to you. What's behind it? How are we doing? We're good? Yeah? I'll wait. Let me know when you're good. You can do whatever it is that you feel is motivating your actions. My experience has been that the overwhelming majority of entrepreneurs do not really understand why people buy what it is they buy. Therefore, they can't really move the needle on selling. So what I'm trying to give you here is an experience of something that you bought, spent good money on, took time out of your schedule for. If you can't kind of get to answers here, you're not going to be able to do it for your prospects, your customers, or anyone else. Desire. Desire is behind every purchase. We only do things that are in line with what we desire. I'll explain that a little bit more in a second, but when you look at the reasons, the three reasons, right, of why, you can look at them and kind of pull out desires. So I want to give you an example of that. So, I'm just picking these at random here. It's really not important which ones we're doing at all. What's important is that you do this, just a little. I'm embarrassed because now I'm saying no to my kids and my spouse more than ever before. We simply can't afford much. I'm so scared of failing and my family suffering the consequences. Okay, if someone wrote that, and they were being honest with themselves, right? And they wrote that, we can start to think about what, at this person's core, they desire, if that is one of their reasons, okay? We could guess that to be a good provider and take care of my family would be a core desire. This is not a person that's gonna run off in the middle of the night and abandon his family, right? Or her family. Another desire could be to be successful, have both me and my family proud of my abilities and accomplishments. That's what it's gonna take for me to feel successful or to be successful. To finally have financial security and free time to enjoy it. Now, that one is not so clear that there's a desire there from that example. But when you're doing it for yourself, it doesn't matter. You're just trying to understand, like, what really is guiding my actions? So, can you pull out one desire from what you've written so far? A core desire that you know actually does drive some of your behavior. Just one. That's all you need to do. Now, if you've done what I've said, one thing should kind of be clear, because it should jump out at you when you look at it. And that is that the beliefs that you kind of look at, right? That it is what connects the desire that you have with the action or demand or purchase that occurs, right? We're using demand and purchase kind of intermittently here because you guys purchase something, you're here, right? If we were talking about prospects, we would be talking about demand. And this might not be clear yet, so I want to walk you through an example so you can just get a better sense of this. Okay, so the reason was to take my offline business online. The reason why, when we penetrated and kind of wanted to get a deeper answer, embarrassed because this person is now saying no to their kids and worried they're going to fail. The desire is to be successful and have both this person, this attendee, and their family be proud of their abilities and their accomplishments. Okay? Next, we want to look at beliefs. We can now get a sense of what this person believes. And it's in beliefs that purchases get made. Right? Because purchases are connected to your desires through your beliefs. I will go back to that numerous times. Okay, so we can say that this person most likely believes that to be successful, they need to take their business online, right? That shouldn't be too much of a leap. That their family will suffer if they don't get their business online, right? That would be another belief, right? If the reason they came is to get their business online, and the reason why is they feel that if they don't get it, like everything's gonna hit the fan, right? And what they really desire is to have success for them and their family, then it makes sense that, just logically, that that they feel their family would suffer if they don't go online. Clear, right? And we could also kind of take like an angle to it and say, okay, this person's upset that they're saying no all the time, so they must have some kind of belief that a good parent doesn't say no all the time. Their words. So I'd like you to kind of look at this for a second, look at what you wrote, and see if you can find one of your beliefs. One of your beliefs. One of your beliefs that connects a desire you have with the reason you're here. Something you believe to be true. You know, it could be that Dan Kennedy has all the answers to my problems, right? It could be that being in an event is really the only way I'm going to force myself to consume certain types of information. You know, I don't know what it is you believe that got you here, but if you don't know what you believe, that is problematic because you won't know what other people believe. Okay, so I've identified just one belief. And if you are struggling with this, I would say that this is then something you just got to start practicing. I wasn't anticipating that many of you would struggle, and I hope you're not. Okay, now, there are really two reasons I wanted you to do that. One, we're going to be referring back to them because I'm going to talk to you about a way of marketing that is different than the way you currently, and it's going to go back to some of those same things, and we're going to be talking about our prospects, but now at least you have some experience. Minimal, but some experience, so that you can actually understand what I am suggesting you do. The other reason, though, which is kind of interesting, is that just by thinking about why you came, what you believe, what you desire, if you keep those front of mind, one, you're more likely to hear something that I say that resonates with that because you're looking for it, not because I said anything different. And you will see more connections between the desires and beliefs with the information that I provide. Right? You know, this is the goal, right? You just got a little bit more clarity of why you're here, and hopefully why you're here right now. And if you keep that in mind as I go through this presentation, you will find answers to whatever it is you wrote. And it won't be because of what I said. It'll be because of the connections you make. Now, another reason I'm here, there's actually three. This is the second, is that I've been studying Dan Kennedy for over 20 years. I'm actually really bummed out because, so that picture on the left is like 2000, year 2000, 17 years ago, I think. Maybe even sooner than that. But I still have that shirt in my closet. And I actually pulled it out to bring here, and I was going to wear it, and I left it on my bed. So, bummer. That was taken like last year. I met Dan at his condo in Disney. But that picture was the very first marketing event I ever went to. It was his final copywriting seminar. I think his third of 10. I went, that changed my life. I went home, I wrote a sales letter, the very first sales letter I ever wrote, and it made me a ton more money than I had made in such a short time. And that was the beginning, even though I didn't jump into this kind of marketing for quite a while later. But 20 years is a long time. If you think about it, or I don't know why you would be thinking about it, but I think about it, actually, everyone in my family I've known less time than I've known Dan Kennedy, which is kind of shocking. Right? I know Dan longer than I know my kids, you know, my partner, everyone. The woman of my dreams, you know, every person I've actually known Dan Kennedy longer than them. All right. I'm going to go through really quickly some elements of my past. Not my story yet. I want to tell you a little bit about my story, but I want to just tell you some of the things I've done. I'll try to whip through this fast. More important for the people who don't know me, why you should listen to me, because I'm going to be telling you stuff that other people won't tell you. So it's worth taking a minute. Why should you listen to what I have to say? Okay, I think it was mentioned, you know, I've coached pretty much almost, not everyone, but almost every big internet marketing guru that online today. Not everyone, but almost everyone. And not only in internet marketing, but I've also coached gurus in persuasion, in decorating, and you name it. I've coached more gurus online than anyone on the planet. And Jay Abraham, a partner of mine, he's coached more offline gurus than anyone else on the planet. And we created a program that I'm going to tell you about. But anyway, one shopping cart, lots of different businesses, companies I've worked with, right? It was already mentioned that I've worked with these companies, so we can pass on that. I want to share 4 quick testimonials. Their intention is to just get you to have a more open mind with what I suggest, okay? So first is Dan Kennedy. This is what Dan had to say, right? The next, the best testimonials are the ones that are the hardest to get. The ones that people guard their name, right? They don't put their name on everything. Dan is one of those people. Jay Abraham is one of those people. Brian Tracy is one of those people. And the last one, how many people are familiar with guerrilla marketing? Have you heard the phrase? Yes? Really? Okay, cool. So guerrilla marketing was created by J. Conrad Levinson. He's the author of 55 books on guerrilla marketing. Here's what he had to say. Rich has turned more startup entrepreneurs into 7- and 8-figure success stories than anyone else I know. And he knows a lot of people. How many people have heard of the company before they came here, of Agora Publishing? Oh, quite a few. Cool. Okay. I've worked with Agora for God knows how many years. I'd say I worked with them ever since they were like about a $100 million company. They're now over a $1 billion company. This is a letter from Bill Bonner, who owns 90% of Agora, just thanking me and giving me a box of cigars. It was a joke. But thanking me for boosting their response by 300% to in-house lists in France, a 250%, 2.5 time lift in response in Germany, and the End of America, which is the most successful campaign that they've ever done. It made 250 million plus, just that one campaign. Selling information products, the same thing that we're talking about here. Just thanking me for helping them push past $1 billion. $1 billion a year selling $49 newsletters, and then back-end services. All right. So I developed a somewhat unique way of marketing because I had to. So I want to tell you the story of that because it leads very much into the route that I'm going to suggest. Okay, so back in 2006, I was just wrapping up a 1.5-year-long coaching program that I had sold from the stage during a seminar that Jay Abraham and I did together. And it was the very first group I ever coached. And I was planning on working with them for a year, and it ended up being 18 months because it was the first time. I guaranteed that each person would double what they were making and cut their work time in half, so 4x what they're making per hour invested in their business, or they would get all their money back. And this was personal coaching. I only accepted 25 people because it was the first time I was doing it, and I lost nobody. And the average increase was 1.5 million per client. And that's where some of the gurus like Ryan Dice of Digital Marketer, Michael Sane, those guys, they were part of that original group, some of them. Some came later, but $1.5 million, and these were not $10 million companies, they were $500,000 companies, $1 million companies, so 1.5 million is a lot, right? Some of them were a $100,000 business. So you would think, with that kind of track record, there'd be a line out my door. But there wasn't. There was no line, it was a ghost town. Now, I got some advice that I should come off stage because it will make me really kind of keep you guys on your toes, and also gives me a chance to connect with you guys. So that's what we're gonna do. not allowed to get up? Okay. So I want you to think about, and maybe this is like a kind of a story that you can relate to, right? I feel like I've got the wheel. I'm helping people 10x, 20x their income, right? And the people I'm helping have lines out their doors with tons of customers, right? And they're not getting the results with clients that I'm getting. And yet, my program's ending, right? The 18 months is up, so my payments stop. I got a project I have to do with Agora in 3 months from now, at that time. So I had 3 months of no income. I'm like, crap, we gotta do something. But I was starting like at zero, like literally zero, because I had this coaching program, I got great results, but that was it. You know, everyone tells you they're gonna change your life. What's another person saying that, right? So I would imagine that there are a lot of you that can relate to that, because I would hope that you have products that you believe in. So the alternative to having products that you believe in is that your target customer is a moron, right? Because if you're really not the best choice for your prospects or customers, you're trying to get them to decide against their best interest. And only morons choose against their best interest. It's not a very solid policy, right? It's not a great idea to think, I'm gonna find the morons of the world who are surfing online and sell them some bag of crap. You won't last. That's David Ogilvy telling people that customers are not morons. But I was extremely frustrated. How the hell am I going to build a business when nobody wants what I'm selling? Even though they should all want what I'm selling. So maybe this sounds familiar. Maybe you feel this way sometimes. You know, when I miss a sale, someone I know I could help a tremendous amount, part of me is really bummed out, and the other part is like, well, screw them, right? Like, it's their loss. But deep down, it's a rejection, it hurts, right? Especially when you know that you're really a great option. So why does that happen? How is it possible that I could get that kind of result, feel like this is the best thing that everyone needs, and yet the people in my market are on a totally other thought process, totally other beliefs? Well, what I want to suggest, I'm more uncomfortable standing down here. What I want to suggest is that it's about experience. That you've had certain experiences in your life that have led you to certain conclusions, whatever they are. Everything you believe, every belief you have is backed up by a story, and that story is based on an experience. And so I have lots of experiences that have led me to the conclusion that you should know about building businesses before you try to build a business, right? I have lots of experiences that tell me that if you market this way, you're more likely to fail than if you market that way. If you don't have those experiences, you don't have those same beliefs, you don't have those same thoughts. So it's a difference of experience that leads to different beliefs, that leads to this disconnect between you and your prospects. Okay? So we're gonna leave my story for a second so that we can talk a little bit more deeply about marketing and selling. So that's sales and marketing. It's blurry intentionally because I think most people are very blurry about sales and marketing. That if we were to take like a random anonymous test, and I asked all of you to define selling, define marketing, we'd have very little agreement. And odds are, I wouldn't agree with them either. And you wouldn't agree with me, I wouldn't agree with you. So there's a lot of lack of clarity as it relates to marketing and selling. And if you can't define what is marketing, if you can't define what is selling, then when do you transition from marketing to selling? How do you know? When is the job of marketing done? When does it hand off to sales? Or you just send a bunch of stuff? Hopefully, they get the marketing message they want or need, and if they are in the buying mode, hopefully they get one of those sales messages. That's a little less than ideal, right? So I want to kind of separate the two. I want to separate marketing and selling. We're going to just push them apart for a second, right? And I want you to realize that, first, that the goals of both are very different, right? As different as a football field goal and a soccer goal. The goal of marketing is really straightforward. It's to make selling superfluous. It's to get someone to want the thing so badly before they're even given the opportunity to buy that selling still needs to be done. And I'll explain why in a second. But the selling is not really convincing. It's not about that, because the person's already been convinced. They already have the belief. So the goal of marketing is to make it, the job of selling, a hell of a lot easier. Now, the goal of selling, primarily, is to overcome status quo bias. Now, I'm pretty certain that every single one of us, myself included, have problems that we are aware of in our life at this moment that we are not taking any action on. We know that things would be better if we took care of it, but we're not. Okay? That's a status quo bias. My weight fluctuates a lot. So I've had six-pack, and other times my legs are rubbing together when I walk. I prefer the first. So my weight has been 250 and as low as like 170. And right now I think I'm about 200. So I'm not as down as I want to be, but not as high. And so because I'm 200, I feel pretty okay if I eat a piece of candy or have a snack or what have you. But when I'm 220, I've passed status quo bias. Now it's like, holy shit, right? Like, staple my mouth shut because I don't want to be 250 again, and now I'm heading back down. We all have these in our lives, things that we will tolerate up to a point, and then we take action on it. Now, part of selling, though, is if someone has a belief that this will improve my life and they're not taking the action because we don't always take action, selling is about getting that person to take action right now, to get them to see that this is the best choice, right? It's not hitting someone over the head, forcing them to buy. So we're trying to market our way, right, to the beliefs that what we offer is what they need. And then when we're selling, it's about getting them to take action now as opposed to later. Now, total tangent for a second. My favorite way of selling, and I'm much more of I think I'm a better marketer than I'm a salesperson, personally. But my favorite way to sell is automated webinars. And that's not because I'm the guy that invented it, even though I did. In 2008, I wrote that report, Supercharge Your Marketing, and that's a diagram of the automated webinar process. That's the process that Frank Kern still uses today. That's what EverWebinar is built on. We developed it first, and we did it because we needed a way, because marketing was working 24/7, but yet sending someone to a sales page often is not the highest engagement. And so we needed some way to be able to sell continuously and also keep attention, engagement, and that's where event-driven marketing came from. Anyway, most entrepreneurs and info marketers don't market enough, and they try to sell too much. Now, think about what I've said about what the goal of marketing is, what the goal of selling is, and if you haven't done your job in marketing, and now you're not convinced that what I have to offer you is really the best thing, and now I'm trying to kind of get you to leave status quo and buy this, well, now I'm pushy. Now I'm not trying to get you to make the best decision for you, I'm trying to get you to make the best decision for me. And nobody likes that. So when you oversell and undermarket, you come off cheesy. You come off pushy. And that's all that's really going on here. There was a lack of marketing done. Because, I'd buy a car from this guy if he has the car I really want, at the price I really want, that I can check out how I want, right? So If we don't do enough marketing, we have to oversell. We're going to go back to the goal of marketing in a minute. But first I want to tell you about a market, your marketplace or niche, right? Where all your prospects reside, where all the people that you are hoping are going to give you money today, tomorrow, next month, next year, this is where they're at, right? They're all gathered in your market. It might be a virtual, digital market. They might not all be in a room together talking about you, but they are all in a place that's reachable. Okay. Now, earlier I was talking about conflict, right? And I wanted you to look at your reason for being here and see the conflict in it. What I want you to recognize is that every single market is made up of an unsolved conflict. Even if you want to improve humanity, it means that humanity ain't perfect now, and that's a problem that I want to fix, right? So markets are defined by a conflict. Now, we might be wrong for a few people, but in general, we could say that the conflict here has to do with either freedom or money, or both. Okay? Now, we don't know what desires people are connected to those conflicts, right, through what beliefs they have, but we know that it's going to be generally one of those two things. Now, that's important to recognize, right, because this group of people that we want to talk to, they all share a conflict. Okay, so we now know something to have a beginning of a good conversation about. Next, the odds that you woke up last week and decided that the conflict that you currently have, you just decided that you have it, is pretty slim. That the odds are that the overwhelming majority of you have had this conflict for some time. It's not brand new. Now, why is that important? Well, if the person's had the conflict for a while, they might have already tried to solve it, and if they're still in the market, then we can pretty much assume they haven't, right? If any of you had your business far surpassing your expectations that it could ever do and didn't need you for anything, I don't think you'd be coming here. And that's fine, there's no judgment there. It's just, I want to point out to you that every market is like that. Unless you're buying some consumer product, like a coffee maker. I'm buying a coffee maker. The conflict is I don't have coffee when I wake up in the morning. But that's a problem or conflict that's pretty easy to solve. Go to Amazon, get the coffee maker, I'm done. But I don't buy info products on coffee makers. I buy info products on personal challenges, business problems, like more significant and more difficult to solve problems. So if you've had a conflict for some period of time and I tell you I can solve it, if you've tried to solve it already, that's the elephant in the room that has to be dealt with, right? I mean, how many times are you going to take the same promise and end up disappointed? So these are critical pieces to keep in mind when we think about marketing, that we're talking to a group of people who have some conflict in their life, a goal unattained, a problem unresolved, and they've had it for a while and they've tried to resolve it and they haven't been able to, which is why they're still in the market. All right, there's something called the marketplace pyramid, which is if we look at all the people in the market, we can guesstimate their inclination to purchase at this given moment. So there's about 3% of the market that are in the buying mode. Like, I want to buy, sell me, right? 6 to 7% are open to possibly buying. 30% are not thinking about it. 30% don't think that they're interested. And 30% know they're not interested. So we're just kind of layering in elements. Do you see, like we've talked about certain things in your life and also in your prospects' lives. We're now talking about the marketplace. We're talking about what they have in common and now how we can categorize them. Okay. There are two different approaches that you can go down to make selling superfluous. You can either chase demand or you can create it. I'm going to venture to guess that most of the stuff that you've been taught is how to chase demand by people who predominantly create it. And I'm not looking to make any enemies, but that's my belief. If you look at, I am a very avid buyer of Dan's stuff. Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham, I don't know which one I've learned more from, but I've learned a lot from both. But, opportunity concepts. How many people are familiar with opportunity concepts? It's a product of Dan's. Okay, not that many people. It's a great product, right? Or influential writing. How many people have, okay, so very few of you know these, which makes me believe that probably you haven't been around Dan for as long as maybe I would have thought you would have been. But let me tell you about these two products. They're both phenomenal products, phenomenal. But opportunity concepts is about how to apply the techniques that business opportunity sellers use to sell crazy ideas, right? Packaged as an opportunity to a market that has seen everything. So Dan's point was, these people know how to sell in the toughest conditions, and they all do this certain things very similar, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. Now, before Dan even brought that up, nobody was demanding that. Nobody was looking for it. Nobody was thinking, wow, I really need to learn what opportunity seeker sellers are doing. So there was no demand. Dan created that demand, right? Frank Kern, mass control. It's mass control. No one was looking for mass control. Some people might have been looking for email persuasion, which is what it is. But Frank would have sold a lot less of email persuasion than mass control. So I'm suggesting that you buy lots of stuff where demand was created, but you're going out chasing demand. Which would then not be too surprising if you can't really nail, this is a belief, this is a desire, because you don't even think this way. So let's talk about demand chasing, okay? Demand chasing is what I believe most of you are doing. I could be wrong. Many of you might not be doing it, but I think so. You'll decide. Okay, so let's look at that marketplace pyramid again. When you are demand chasing, right, you're only going after the part of the market that are ready to buy. You're going after the most targeted prospects. So, it's in keywords in general, the longer the description in the search phrase, the more inclined towards purchase. So if I type in sneaker, I'm a lot less likely to buy than Puma 420s, red lace, whatever, right? If I type in coaching, I am a lot less qualified than if I type in online business coaching for my shoe store, whatever. So the more descriptive the person is typing in search, that's just in search, the more this person is more qualified, more likely to purchase, okay? But at any given point, there's only about 10% tops that could buy, that would be willing to buy, based on the marketing that's being done, right? 3% are they want to be sold. The other 6 to 7% are open to it, and that's where funnels come into play. So one thing that should be apparently obvious is that you're only targeting a very small group of the market, which makes sense if advertising is expensive at times, but it's not the best long-term strategy. Now, if you go after people who you think are most targeted, then what I want you to really understand in all the things you do, whether it's blog posts, any kind of media, any kind of social marketing, all of it you're doing to cash in on current demand. You're not putting stuff out there to potentially have someone be exposed to that message, then another message, and then have a belief changed. You're actually trying to get that guy, that girl to buy relatively soon. If not now, close to now. So your marketing, for the most part, is probably all pitched at, designed for the current demand that's kind of passing by. Let's talk about creating demand. When you create demand, you're looking at the prospect pyramid differently. The first thing is to realize that, yeah, well, at the top of the pyramid, all you really should do is sell. If they're ready to buy, you don't want to market to them. You know, a sale delayed is a sale that doesn't happen, right? You know, I've heard many jokes about salesmen who don't know when to stop talking, right? Like, you already sold me, just leave me alone now. If you keep talking, I'm going to leave, right? So the top is just for selling. The bottom, though, this is where marketing comes into play. But this is not the same marketing of chasing demand. This is about creating demand. You see, marketing that creates demand moves people up the pyramid. I hadn't had a single thought about what makes writing more influential in a newsletter than less influential. I never had a single thought about leveraging the tactics that opportunity marketers use, but I bought both of them. I wasn't thinking about it. If you had asked me about it, I probably would have said, I don't think I'm going to be interested in that. But Dan presented a very persuasive case as to why I should be interested in it, what it will do for me. Started to change some beliefs. Oh, wow, I never realized that if opportunity sellers are in this environment that's heavily regulated with customers that are more jaded than anyone else, selling ideas that I would just think are totally unsellable, they probably are doing some things right. Their ethics are not necessarily great, but their marketing tactics should be looked at. So my point is that demand creating is about talking to a group of people who are not interested in buying at this moment, but recognizing that they're in the market, they have the conflict, they have had it for some period of time, and they would like to still be rid of the conflict. That's why they're still in the market. But they're jaded, they're skeptical, they don't want to get hurt again, they don't want to waste their time, they don't want to get their hopes up, etc. All right, so just a clearer way to kind of visualize the two. Demand chasing, demand creating. Now, it also made a lot more sense. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I would imagine this makes sense to everyone. When things were first getting started online, and very few people sold anything online, then demand chasing made sense because there were more people online looking to buy than there were people selling. I mean, imagine the days before Amazon. So there was a time when it didn't really make sense to do that much demand creating because there was more demand than you needed to create that was already there. That's not the case anymore. We'll talk about why in a second. So this is the part that really becomes problematic, though. If your strategy is based on demand chasing, then you have to find more tops of pyramids to go after, okay? I'm not, because I've worked with so many people, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble, okay? But I just ask you to, use your mind in what I'm saying, okay? And I think some of the tactic I'm going to mention right now, I think is a great tactic, but I just want you to appreciate it. So a tripwire. A tripwire makes a lot of sense if this is your model, doesn't it? You're going after targeted customers. They are in the buying mode of some sort. So let's put something cheap right in front of them right now without any marketing. Just using the low price as the incentive enough to get a conversation and a customer relationship going. Makes perfect sense. It's very effective. I'm not trying to dig it. What I am saying is that strategy is sometimes a good strategy even when you're creating demand, but it's a strategy that is primarily used because we don't spend a lot of time marketing. So we're going to use a low price as the way to make selling a little bit less necessary, maybe not superfluous. But this isn't easy to accomplish, right? I'm going to go to that market and cream the top. I'm going to go to that market and cream the top. Yeah, good luck. Okay, if you're creating demand, though, that just comes from more people being exposed to whatever demand-creating messages that you have. And if there are new people entering the market and you create something valuable, odds are that new people will be getting it, right? It was mentioned that the Internet Business Manifesto, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, but has been downloaded over 2 million times. It still gets downloaded today, and people still buy my coaching program from that today. That coaching program is 12 years old, and the Internet Business Manifesto I wrote in 2006. So even in 2017, something I wrote in 2006 is sending me money, almost daily. I've done other things since 2006, fortunately, so I have other things that also are sending me money. So that's what's possible when you create demand, because when you create demand, you're generating the demand. When you're chasing demand, you're a slave to what people want, and people are finicky, and they change their opinions, and fads come and go. Okay. So now we can get back to this riddle, right? This why are people not succeeding as they should with everything getting easier, right? And we looked at all these slides where I showed you every single thing is easier. Well, if we go back to this, right? This image, and you consider the next slide, I think it comes together. Okay, you're now competing with entrepreneurs worldwide for a very small percentage of the customers worldwide. You're just going for the tops, right? If you're demand chasing. Now, in addition to that, what if you're all using the same tools? What if you're all following the same demand chasing strategy? What if you all have tripwires and you're all going after the same people? And you all can make funnels with a click of a button. And not just you, but people in India, people in Japan, everywhere. That's a problem. How do you stand out? How do you look any different? How does the prospect know who's got something substantial and who doesn't? So, this demand chasing strategy is the most competitive. You're going after the traffic that's the most competitive. You're going after the prospects whose attention is most difficult to get because they are the most advertised to. They are the most expensive because lots of people bid on it. They're the least effective, for a dollar invested. And they're only 3% of the market if you're targeting the top, 9 to 10% if you're targeting the first 2 levels. I didn't have a slide, so I drew this in my room, because I wanted you to kind of get the point I'm trying to make. When you're demand chasing, over time your profit decreases. It doesn't really start really high, but it is a little bit easier. You press a button, you put a funnel out, maybe it makes you money. Most likely it doesn't. But over time, if what you do does work, other people will find it, they will clone it, they will knock it off, and you'll be competing with them on the front end to acquire new customers. So over time, anything that does work stops working, and you end up having to work harder, not less, because you don't have anything that pays you for 10 years. When you create demand, when you create a message that excites people, gets an idea in their mind, that like the experience you had that led you to the conclusion you have, that can just sit out there. I don't know where the person who bought my coaching program yesterday found the manifesto. I mean, I could look it up in our system. I have no idea. Wasn't involved in anything that 2 million people have it. It's all over the place. But yesterday, someone came to my site, spent, I think, $4,000 from something I wrote. And it was 30 pages, not 60 pages. That was a lot of, 60 pages would be a lot of writing. My point here is that, and I don't think this should be any kind of big leap, I hope not. It's better to do something once and get paid forever than to get paid less and less and have to do something all the time. So you're competing with entrepreneurs worldwide, and they're all using the same tools. And they might all be going after the same people who have expressed any interest in possibly buying now. Now, a very famous book came out. I don't even remember when it came out. I read it a long time ago. Blue Ocean Strategy. If you never read the book, you don't have to. But if you've read the book, it talks about how the companies that are doing the best have gone from very competitive markets to creating their own market, which is creating demand. They've moved from demand chasing to creating demand by, in the book, they talk about a value curve and how to adjust what your offer is so that you have something unique. So it's a little bit different of approach, but nonetheless, it's the same idea, okay? So the reason for that, though, is that there's no momentum in demand chasing. You're competing with the whole herd, the whole school of fish, whatever you want to call it. So you have no momentum, right? If you're not making more from what you did before, then that implies that what you make today is a function of what you do today. No momentum in that. So without momentum, most likely not enough money, most likely working too hard, most likely things don't get easier, and maybe you start doubting yourself. So does what I'm saying make sense to you guys? Yeah? So how many of you, by a show of hands, think that you do more demand chasing than you do demand creating? All right. So if your hand's not up, you create demand. You sell things that people weren't looking for. Okay, I'd say about 60% of you put your hand up, but if the other 40%, good for you if that's true, horrible for you if it's not true, because this is your chance to change it. Okay, so I want to give you a choice that you can make of which way you want to go with this. And I'm not saying abandon what you've done in the past. I'm saying open up some space to do something different, okay? You can go left and continue to chase demand, or you can go right and create it. Before you decide which way you want to go, let's talk about the pros and cons. Demand chasers, they oversell, they undermarket, right? We talked about that. They're always at the mercy of the market. If the market thinks this is great, Facebook is the way to go, and you're SEO, then you got nothing to sell because you're following them, right? You work a lot for less results, your list is generally small, you have less customers because everyone else is going after the same people, and you have no momentum. And if there's ever a time where there isn't demand, like a recession, you're SOL. Because if you can't create your own demand when there's a pullback of demand, then you're going to be left out in the cold, and that's happened numerous times online even, in 2008 and other recessions. So anytime there's no demand, difficult times. Okay, demand creator, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was a demand creator, maybe one of the best that ever lived, because no one was going around thinking I need an iPhone, no one was going around thinking I need an iPad. Like, he created these things, and people wanted them. He created the demand. I got to tell you that, like, I'm a huge Apple fan. A client of mine, I had my iPhone, and I had my MacBook Air. And a client of mine brought me as a gift an iPad. And I'm like, what do I need this iPad for? I got a phone, and I got a thin notebook computer that's about the same size as this iPad. I'm never going to use it. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm on my iPad more than any other device, right? So, and if mine got broken tonight, I'd be buying a new one tomorrow. Like, all my books are on my iPad. I do writing on it's like my primary device. So he knew that I would want it, not me personally, but that there would be people who want it when they saw it and what it could do. That was his genius, right? So steady and continual sales, your list is constantly growing. You're never a slave to the whims of the market. You know, I think I have a pretty good reputation online. One of the reasons I have a good reputation online is that I've never had to sell something because lots of people were interested. So even though I created, the automated webinar craze, I did a small workshop for a group of clients, teaching them everything I knew, but that was it. I didn't want to create a program. I'm not the world's expert on it. I'm not going to dedicate my life towards it. I haven't come out with product after product after product. I don't have to, because the products I created before still sell. So I've been fortunate in the sense that I've had to create less, I could be more focused, I could get better results because I'm more focused, because I can sell what I want to sell, what I believe people need, not what they necessarily believe at first. Okay, authority, status, and admired. One of the reasons why I was a nobody online, even though I was coaching a lot of the gurus, until I wrote the Internet Business Manifesto. And then I was quickly like the guy online. And that was kind of uncomfortable for an introvert for a couple of years until that kind of someone else was the next person. Financial success and freedom. Constantly pursued by prospects who want to become clients or customers. Wouldn't that be nice? To grow by referral, and it's great to grow by referral, and it's great to have referral systems. It's even better if your clients just really think you're the shit and feel like they're doing their friend a favor by telling them about you. So, fast growth and momentum. A side note on this is that if you look, like I said, everyone at the top of any info market, they're a guru, they're authority, they're a maven, they're creating their own demand for the most part. They're not selling the things that everyone's looking for. You know, it's a chicken egg thing. Which comes first? I would say that they create demand first. They didn't create products that everyone else was looking for. So they never had to compete. It's also when you have authority status or maven status or guru status in a market, it's self-reinforcing in creating demand. You create demand based on what you think and the influence that you have, right? So being out front, talking about stuff, creates demand for your products, right? Demand for your products makes you an expert. Run that circle, right? And I just want you to recognize that, hopefully you recognize these people. These are all clients. Just kidding. That'd be nice. I'm going to tell you, how many people here know that Bill Gates dropped out of college? Harvard. Okay, wow. We all know that. Why do we all know that? You think that's just happens? Okay, how many people have heard the story of Steve Jobs and him being in that garage in wherever the Palo Alto or something park with Steve Wozniak, right? And they built the first Apple. A lot of people. Maybe a few less, but how many people have heard that Sam Walton started actually he was a franchisee of Franklin or 5 and 10 store, some cheap store. He had a lease, his store was successful, his landlord didn't renew the lease because he wanted his son to buy that franchise, and so he kicked him out, and then that forced Sam to start his own business, Walmart. How many people have heard that story before? Okay, less. All right, Oprah. How many people have heard she grew up really poor, she was raped and abused when she was 13, and her first job was on some crappy local news weather? A lot of people. Okay, I'm going to suggest that that's not a coincidence, that didn't happen by accident. That one of the reasons why experts, authorities, gurus, etc., have influence is because you feel like you know them, and you feel like you know them because they tell you about themselves. You know, how many of your friends do you know, like, what got them into their business? Probably less than some of these people. But that's what allows you to feel like you know this person. And that is achieved through this whole process of positioning authority and also having an opinion, having products, having solutions that are different from the pack. So another program I did a while back, how many people are familiar with Jay Abraham? Okay, a lot. Oh, this will be interesting. If you didn't participate, don't participate now, but if you've been participating, how many people know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? That's close. A couple years back, me, Jay, and Gary did a program where it was all about becoming the authority in the market. We did it before anyone was kind of talking about that. And as I said earlier, I've helped more people online become authorities. Jay has helped more people offline become authorities, and Gary Vaynerchuk is one of the best success stories of becoming an authority. You know, from running his dad's liquor store, that was like a $2 million business, turning it into a $60 million a year business by just having a video blog, and then parlaying that into his own ad agency that does over $100 million, doing social media marketing for some of the big companies, and has a huge following. And you know, every time I sign up for some new social media site, one of the people they're recommending I follow, because everyone else does, is Gary Vaynerchuk. Anyway, so this was a great program. This program though, there's an overlap there, right? Like, it's one of the best, being unique is obviously a good thing if you want to be an authority, if you want to be an expert. If you're like everyone else, then you're like everyone else. You're not better, okay? So creating massive demand for your business. Cool. What do you need to know? Okay, what we're doing when we're creating demand is we're bringing the market to desire the product or service that we offer, right? We're trying to get people to desire what it is we offer. Now, what do we desire? Well, we desire things that we think are valuable. And we think things are valuable if they solve conflicts for us, whatever they are. Remember, a conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a goal that you really want to achieve that you just haven't gotten to yet. Or it could be a problem that you haven't been able to resolve. Now, one of the first things I tell my clients when I'm working with them, because they're so like, well, geez, I don't know where to start. How do I, where does the conversation begin? Well, as I said earlier, like, I've had a group of experiences that have led me to the conclusion that I have. So whether it's that you should create demand as opposed to chase demand, or you should know about building a business before you try to build one, I have lots of experiences. So you could look at the job of marketing as compressing your experience and giving it to your prospects in an accelerated way. How can I get them to experience what I experienced? Obviously in a different way, that will lead them to the same conclusion that I've come to. Because what we're trying to do is move prospects to the ideal buying state. And this might be something that you've not thought of or heard about, but there is a mode of thinking where your product is most appealing, right? Where what the prospect thinks about you, your products, your competitors, about themselves, all kind of gets mixed up, and if it's mixed up the right way, they want to buy what you have. So the question is, what is it that your prospects need to think, believe, and feel to want to buy what it is you offer? And you start building out that ideal. What is it? You got to first identify it, right? So the current mindset is what's going on in prospects' minds right now, and we want to take them through the process of marketing to an ideal mindset. We want to change what they know, change what they believe, change what they feel. I'm speeding up because I want to get to certain key elements. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well. I just thought it would be funny to use that and then put a slide of me, very similar to it. If you can't describe the ideal buying mindset for your offer, you will never be able to create it in your prospects. Okay? I'm going to get to later, but we might as well mention it now. The offer of what you offer decides everything. Because ultimately, your marketing is trying to make that offer superfluous. That offer. So all marketing starts with looking at the offer and saying, what does someone need to think, feel, or believe? So when they look at that offer, this is a no-brainer. Which also means that the better your offer, the less of a job your marketing has to do. If I want to sell one of you guys a brand new Ferrari for $10, I don't need to do any marketing. Just need to announce that I'm selling a Ferrari for $10, right? That's all I would have to do. If I want to sell it for $10 million, might require some marketing. So in the Internet Business Manifesto, I want to just give you examples of like what I mean when I say, what do they know? Okay? So in the Internet Business Manifesto, this product that this report I wrote to help people know what I knew so they could see what I offer as valuable like I did. I know a lot of people were sitting on the sidelines saying, someday I'm going to start making real money online. So I needed them to feel, not feel like just have a feeling, but feel like they knew that today was going to be the easiest day that it would ever be to build an internet business, and tomorrow it will be more difficult, and the next day will be more difficult, and that doesn't mean it's impossible, but just know each day it's getting more difficult. Now, if I just say that just, what does that mean? But if I have in my report this explanation how every single industry, it's very easy for entrepreneurs to thrive at the beginning, but if we look at the infomercial business, the car industry, the cable TV industry, the newspaper industry, and so many more industries, every one of them had lots of entrepreneurs at the beginning, and then some of those entrepreneurs turned them into real businesses, and everyone else was gone. So someone reads that, they now have learned something. Wow, that's interesting. Didn't know that. Now that sticks with them, and they now have this fact that will be useful later. Now, if I'm selling coaching, just to kind of give you an understanding of a feeling, like if I'm selling business coaching, right? I don't want the prospect to be overly confident that they can do it all on their own and not need me. I also don't want them to feel it's totally hopeless and they're never going to be successful. Either one of those feelings is going to block my ability to enroll them in that coaching program. What I want them to have is doubt whether they could do it alone, confidence they could do it with me, right? And that should be obvious, but when you start taking a step back and you start looking at these things, they become clearer. All right, belief. So remember, there's some belief that connected your desire, your reason and desire, with you coming here. Right, that the conflict that you're experiencing is based on some unfulfilled desire. The conflict you're experiencing is based on some unfulfilled desire. And there's a belief that a specific thing or approach or whatever is going to resolve the conflict. So the conflict is a desire unfulfilled. The belief connects your action, what you're going to buy, with the resolution of the conflict, which you believe will fulfill the desire. And that's how demand is created. I shared this last year, I'm sharing it again this year. This is probably the most important slide in the presentation. If you don't remember anything and you just remember this, it could be enough. I don't know. I think it is. It's really simple. There is some belief, if the person's not buying from you, there is some belief that's preventing them from buying from you. If they're buying from you, they have the belief that you need for them to buy from you, right? So you could summarize all of marketing, take their current belief into the desired belief. I'm going to show you why I say that. But not only that, because you might be thinking, well, how the hell could I ever know what my prospects believe currently? Well, if you go back to the diagram for a second, the answer's there, right? We look at what they're currently doing, what they're buying, and we ask the question, what would someone need to believe in order to buy that? That's all. And we come up with some reasons. So if you want to know what your prospects are currently believe, how they think they're going to fulfill their desires and solve their conflicts, just look at what they're buying and ask yourself, what must they believe if they're buying that? What I have found is that when you're taking the current belief and making it into a belief that supports the purchase of your product, that the best way to do it is to create a bigger belief. Say, Mr. Prospect, what you believe is absolutely true, but it's not the whole story. There's something you're missing, right? Because instead of saying you're completely wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, like that's not really going to score you points. So you have to come out with an idea, a concept that encompasses what they currently believe but is more. And if you understand that they have failed to solve the conflict, this now is starting to make sense. I wasn't completely off, I just was missing something. So I wrote this report. This is a client report, not a free report, that was all about this idea of what I call a core concept. So some of you might have heard of USP. Have you heard of a USP? Okay. So the USP is the core selling idea of your sales message, right? So the core concept is the core marketing idea. that if someone truly believes, they will buy your product. The default is, if they believe this, then they have to buy that. So I wrote this report on how to figure that out. Now, why is that so important? One, it makes your marketing incredibly focused. Two, everyone's distracted these days. So if you're really clear about the one thing that you need to get people to believe, you can reinforce that time and time and time again in every message. You don't have to say it exactly the same, but you can reinforce it. You want to have a belief that turns your offer into an IQ test, that you'd have to be a complete imbecile to say no to this offer, right? Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't buy it. Like, maybe you're brain dead. So what does it take in your marketing to make your offer seem like that? That's your core concept. That's the belief that makes your promise, your USP, a must-have. As I said earlier, the offer defines all the marketing because you're trying to make the offer the thing that they can't say no to. I figured out that one of the reasons I had to get really good at marketing was I came up with really bad offers. Because when I looked at things that were doing really well, I'd look at the market and I'd be like, that's crap. But then I'd look at the offer and I'd say, oh, that's amazing. No wonder they're doing so well. So the better your offer, the less the task of marketing. Okay, let's go back to my story. So, as I said, it was 2006, made my clients lots of money. I wasn't making any. Well, necessity is the mother of invention, right? I love these kind of pictures. I could waste so much time online looking at pictures. Like, I love the rollers blade. I think that's cool. Anyway, looking for what can I do to solve my problem. So I bought this product. Like I said, I bought most of Dan's products. And I don't know if it was the advanced or the regular coaching consulting boot camp, but it was one of those. And there were like 4 Q&A calls that you got with it, or 6, I don't know. And one of the callers had the same exact question that I had. I didn't even know I had that question until I heard it, and I'm like, yes, right? And here's what the caller said. Dan, I have no low-price products to get customers for my coaching program. I don't want to take any of the content from my coaching program to create low-price products either, because I'm afraid it will cannibalize sales of my coaching program. What should I do? And when the person asked that question, I was like, yes. Yeah, what do you do? Because that's what I hadn't created any low-price products. I didn't want to. I didn't want to take my best ideas. And this is what Dan Kennedy said. I still remember, I can't say that he said all these words. I know he started with Bubba. I know he then went to, you just don't get it. I remember these words. This is like 20 years ago. He said, Bubba, you just don't get it. You put your best ideas in your low-price products because that's what's going to get them to want to buy your coaching program. And that was it. Like the light switch turned on for me. And because I take things to extremes, I didn't take my best ideas and put it in a low-price product. I took some of my good ideas that I felt would reinforce the beliefs that I have, and I gave it away for free. So in my market at the time, nobody was interested in coaching, business coaching for internet marketing. Why would we? Just find the right marketing tactic, you make millions, right? So my whole pyramid was no. Right? And everyone in the marketplace felt marketing's going to make me rich. You know, all I need to do is learn marketing, and I can be financially free with the right marketing tactic. The secret search engine loophole, whatever. Right? So I wrote this report, 30 pages, Internet Business Manifesto, and in it I shared experiences I had, viewpoints I had, with the hope that if someone read this, they would then see why business coaching is so important. But not because I was selling business coaching, because I was selling them on the challenges that they'll face if they don't know certain things. For example, I made the case that if you're an entrepreneur, odds are that your income is dependent on projects. Odds are you know nothing about projects, so you're an untrained project manager managing projects, and your income and your success is based on that. Good idea. So these were the kinds of things I started to share, and the dots connected for people, and they're like, I thought I wasn't succeeding because of this, but actually, this is what I need. So, told you about the bigger idea of wrapping, right? So their current belief was the right marketing tactic, secret, or online business opportunity will make me rich. There was no interest in business. I came in and said, you know what? Knowing marketing tactics and all that, that's really important. But so is knowing everything else about business. Marketing might even be the most important, but if you don't know anything else, you're screwed. And it probably is going to feel like this, look like this, and people were like, it does feel like that, it does look like that must be my problem, right? So when someone was done, they said, you know, not knowing business strategy is killing me. Learning more marketing tactics is part of the problem, et cetera. Oh. So 30 pages, $3.5 million came into my bank account in weeks, so all of a sudden, that project I was going to do with Agora 3 months later had to be put on hold. I had to build a company because I only had an assistant. 7.4 million came in the first 12 months from that report. I was completely unknown in the market to becoming one of the top authorities. My list multiplied, affiliates lined up, sales exploded. It shouldn't be any surprise that I spent the next year and a half writing 6 more reports. If you write 1 report and you make a ton of money, seems like a good idea. So I wrote all these. The biggest one is the last one. There's a reason for that. But each one of these brought in over $2 million in sales that wouldn't have happened. Selling things that most people weren't looking for before they read a report. And it's not just reports. I'm using reports here because I'm known for reports. But I have webinars and I have videos and I've done live streams. It's about the message. I have the same message in reports and videos, because once you have a message that turns someone into a customer, you use it every way you can. Anyway, so that last one, the entrepreneurial emergency, was to market a program teaching theory of constraints. Nobody in the market even knew what theory of constraints was, let alone that they should want it, because it was about manufacturing, optimizing manufacturing. What does that have to do with online marketing? Nothing. So nobody was interested in it. I wrote this report showing people that, well, I asked people, I don't know what you think is going to determine your success, whether it's your talent, your connections, your looks, your smarts, your ability to work hard, whatever, right? Whatever potential you have, I don't think that that's going to be the thing that determines how successful you're going to be. And let me tell you why. Right now, are you at your full potential? Meaning the potential you have, are you at it? Are you like at 100%? Because if not, why do you think adding more potential is going to immediately translate into better results? If 100% of your results, if 100% of your potential is not being used now, why would adding more potential to something that's not being fully used just make you more? In fact, you should look the other way. You should look at why isn't your full potential being tapped into right now? That's your constraint. You know that. You know the answer where you get the most leverage in your business. All of a sudden, everyone was interested in theory of constraints. I mean, it was a little bit more than that, but that's the gist, right? I ended up selling more than 3.3 million of that course. And Eli Goldratt, the guy who created it, I was at an event with him. His event, I was at it. We talked, I told him what I did, and he just couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that I could sell more than most consultants would do in 20 years in a couple of weeks. But that was because I knew my prospects, and I knew how to explain things so that they could see that, oh, these problems, these conflicts I have, actually, I think they can be solved this way. In fact, not only do I think they can be solved this way, I think not having this is the reason I haven't been able to solve it. All right, to test, to make sure that maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my market, I did a report writing workshop. I did 2 of them. I limited them to 15 people in each one, and they were $15,000 to come for the weekend, and I taught how the whole process of how I write reports. 15,000, sold out twice. They had to sign a non-disclosure because that was the only times I've sold it. Some of the people that were in that room, Alex Jeffries went from 20,000 a month to 333,000 in his first month. This David built a 6-figure consulting firm from scratch, like a IT type. Gail Dolby, she's a interior designer. She created a marketing message like I'm talking about. She made $200,000. It took her 2 weeks to do it, and she makes that $200,000 year in, year out. And the last person on the bottom is Yusuf. He had no core concept. We made him a core concept. He went from 300,000 to $1 million in year 1 from that, and then he went to 2 million and higher and higher. So now back to the presentation. Where I get you more tips. All right, so a couple quick things I want you to understand. Different is always better than better. Nobody can understand different. Nobody can understand better. If I say I'm better than you, how do you know? But you can spot different from far away. So if you're someone who has been in a market, bought lots of things, and hasn't gotten the result, don't you think you want different? Not more of the same? Do I want a better version of the thing that didn't get me results? Or do I want a totally different approach? All right? If you're not different, you're invisible because everything looks the same, right? We were talking about it. Everyone's using the same tools, same tactics, going after the same types of customers, et cetera. Now, also, when a prospect experiences something different, they share it. That's why my reports go viral, right? Look at this bathroom. If you went into this bathroom, you were at dinner, and you're a guy. If you're a girl, I don't know what you'd be doing in this bathroom, but if you're a guy and you went into the bathroom you're at a restaurant, and you're with a couple of other couples or whatever, you're with friends, are you not going to mention that bathroom when you get back to the table? You don't need a strategy, to get people to talk and all this kind of, just give them something to talk about. Be different. What's different generates new hope because that didn't work, but this is different, it could work. Right? So I'm just reminding you that everyone in the market shares an unresolved conflict. It's defined by that conflict, and they've had that conflict for a while. Are they going to choose more of the same, or are they going to choose different? Okay, revelation versus explanation. The goal when you create any kind of message is you want to lead people to certain conclusions. I'm going to need about 5 extra minutes, and I apologize for that. You want to create a message that creates certain thoughts. You don't want to say those thoughts at first. You want to cause that thought in the mind. And then in case the thought hasn't happened, you share it. So revelation trumps explanation. If I lead you down a process, right, like I'm talking about every industry evolving, at some point you might think, hey, the internet might evolve the same way, before I say it. And because you thought it, it's more true than if I said it. In any kind of fiction writing, probably nonfiction too, they say, show it, don't tell it. Show, don't tell, right? So it doesn't mean anything when you tell your prospects it's not your fault. You don't know me. How do you know it's not my fault? But it means the world to me if I come to the conclusion, all the past attempts, I couldn't have succeeded. It really isn't my fault. There was no way. That's very different than reading in a piece of copy, it's not your fault. Right? Mark Twain said, don't just say the lady screamed, bring her out, let her scream. Show, don't tell. Okay. Timing is everything. All objections can be easily dealt with if they're dealt with before they come up. These are the most common objections. And, I can give GKIC copies of my slides, and if they'll figure out a way to get it to everyone. I see people getting kind of stressed. But all of these are some of the most common as they relate to info publishing. I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't believe you, it won't work for me, I don't need it, I can do it without you. You have to have an answer to these. And ideally, these don't ever come up because you've dealt with them before they came up, which is so much easier. Okay, when do you transition from marketing to selling? You transition from marketing to selling when someone has bought into your core concept. When they believe that one belief, when you've put that belief in front of them and you've either had them click on a link or download something or whatever to tell you, yeah, I believe what you're saying, they're ready to be sold. Sorry. I told you about I don't know if I told you about this. So yeah, I created the automated webinars. I did a small workshop, wrote that report, and do people recognize these people? If you do, you say yes. Okay, so Mike Filsain went from like $18,000 a month to $300,000 a month after he learned this process. Russell Brunson owed the government, I think, $1 million in back payroll taxes. His company was shut down, and he thought he was going to go to jail. And I was talking to him on the phone, and I said, fly down here, I will help you fix it. He flew down, I taught him this automated webinar thing, and I think 90 days later, or 60 days later, I don't remember, like he had banked well over $1 million, paid off the government, could sleep, right? And Frank Kern just has said numerous times that, yeah, this report changed the way I market, and I market like this report. What I've ultimately done in my business, what I'm going to invite you, if you want to learn how to do it for your business, is build a demand creating system that delivers customers daily. Right? My marketing is out there, being passed along, being found, being discovered. And when it is, there's a webinar waiting. Anytime, any day, where the status quo bias can be overcome. So it looks like this. Very simple version, right? Marketing is the report, webinar is the selling, the system, the coaching program, is automated too. So all I do is show up once a week and answer questions for everybody. So I hope that some of this starts to get you thinking differently. I don't think you're going to hear this message from a lot of people. If you hear it from someone, let me know, because I want to find out where they heard it. But I want to tell you now that I'm going to make you an offer to work with me to do what I just said, plus a lot more, to get your business where you actually create demand. So let me just tell you about it for a minute, and then you make your decision. You're at a crossroads, right? My track record, I'd like to believe, stands for itself. I've helped a lot of people make a lot of money. And my favorite thing to do is actually work with entrepreneurs. I dig it, right? I know I make an impact that way. So the decision, whether we work together, we spend time building your business or not, happens now. I believe, and I hope you do too, that the only real security you have in life is what your ability allows you to get, right? That's the only thing that people can't take away from you, your ability. I have the ability to take an idea and turn it into a business. That gives me a certain sense of, calmness, that I'm okay. I'll be okay. Doesn't matter, right? If you put me out in the woods, I'd be in a panic, because I don't think I could survive for 24 hours. But you put a Green Beret out in the woods, he's going to feel, or she's going to feel like I feel here, right? So I created this program because I was thinking about getting out of the business, and I'm not really sure whether I am or not. I'm still kind of deciding. But I wanted to create this thing because this is what I felt I did differently from everybody else, and it was the one thing I wanted to leave behind if I ever left the industry. So this is what I believe is the fastest formula to gain authority, get customers, grow a business, get rich by creating demand, owning your own category, and information.